Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Deloitte's AI Forum 2024, presented by Deloitte AI Institute. The AI generation, a new age of possibility.
Deloitte's AI Forum 2024 was recently held in the Tech Hub of India, Bengaluru. The forum delved into the dynamic landscape of business, unraveling both the thrilling opportunities and challenges that unfold with the rise of Gen AI and other disruptive technologies. The forum kick-started with a powerful discussion between Romal Shetty, CEO of Deloitte South Asia, and Sonam Wangchuk, founding director of the Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, where they unveiled the societal impact and prospects of Gen AI.
One of the areas that you've been very passionate about is obviously the education system. Two things which I wanted was, coming back to the AI of how India needs to move towards more an innovation mindset to build products, but at the same time, how AI can help in transforming the education system is something that maybe, if you could shed some light.
Yes. Education is a huge field we need to pay attention to if we want our, dividends from the young population. Now, one big problem that India faces is linguistic diversity or the restrictions that rural people feel. Unfortunately, with an English-dominated world, people don't get a fair chance. AI could play an amazing role in democratizing education. I'm really surprised why it's not already happening. I'm sure it's coming. You could watch a video of a beautiful concept on, say, YouTube. Now, you can have subtitles in a language of your choice.
Some of the risks and challenges that you see in AI as a technology, what could be, what do you see? Because it's obviously does a lot of good things, but like all good things, you have a few things that may not.
Yes, I hope there'll be enough human wisdom to make the best use of it. Risks, yes, and risks often make us fear a lot about future, but that might be also because in the past few years, the movies, the videos, etc., that you get to see are more about the takeover of robots and, the mess that the world can become. Maybe that has to do with also human insecurity and, such biases and so on. Actually, it is just a great tool.
Following this, a panel of experts amplified Deloitte's approach towards Gen AI, shedding light on its impeccable initiatives.
So maybe, Vishal, we start with you. We were talking about sort of our own change journey and everything else. How has our delivery centers in India adapted to the change? What are you doing? How are you sort of seeing some of the shifts in our own work delivery over here?
Probably it's hitting every space, right, which is relevant to us. So if you think of our profession and our strategy, two most important elements would be serving clients with distinction, which means creating measurable value for them, and then creating number one talent experience for our people. So if you think of the client value, we're looking at it as how do we do the work we do today for them in a faster, more efficient, productive way, which means how do we transform our delivery methods, embed Gen AI in them, so that the work which would have taken, let's say, X amount of time earlier without Gen AI, we can automate pieces of it, we can bring human intelligence where needed, we can make humans faster at that.
So from your perspective, as you've been in this Gen AI discussions with our clients, what are some of the surprising items that you found in educating our clients on Gen AI or sort of shifts in their mindsets?
Yeah, I think very pertinent point, because the concept of Gen AI is primarily triggered by some sort of fascination as well. Excitement is always good because people look forward to adopting that technology. But when you are more fascinated, then perhaps you are not really aware of it. So we had to run a sort of campaign initially to make our people more AI aware. And Deboshi, you being the AI SGO leader, have been running it globally for us. So just for everybody to understand, within Deloitte also, we ran a campaign that was AI awareness, then Gen AI awareness, to make sure that we also appreciate and understand the concept better.
In the subsequent panel, distinguished industry experts offered insights outlining their vision regarding the transformative impact of Gen AI on the global workforce.
Shilpa and Meenakshi, maybe I'll start with you. As you know, we've taken a technology perspective in previous sessions. I want to have a CHRO perspective in generative AI. How are you seeing the whole ecosystem getting reinvented, in context of generative AI, and what part of talent life cycle do you both see getting maximum impacted?
Work is going to get reshaped, right? There are huge productivity gains that could follow. If you think about a CPG company, there are such tremendous opportunities for leveraging generative AI for customer operations, for R&D, for supply chain and inventory management, for marketing and sales. For a CPG company like Diageo, will generative AI eliminate jobs? Yes, it will. But we've said we will not get fazed by it because we also think that it will reshape and augment jobs. It will actually elevate the work that human beings are doing by becoming a co-pilot for the work that they're doing. And third, we also think it will create jobs in the future.
I think workplace and people who work with us are going to fundamentally shift, no doubt about it. I think what I feel is that it'll change at a much more rapid pace than today what we understand it'll change. And I think still there's a lot of dialogue of it being futuristic, but I think there's already a very heavy acceleration towards adoption. Kate, let me bring you into the conversation, right? You are working, very closely with generative AI, and you have a view both what we are doing within Deloitte, but also how clients and industries are adapting to it,
So within the US, we have 4 different businesses, our consulting, advisory, tax, and audit businesses. And what we found, Deborshi mentioned that string of pearls idea of really trying to string together different technologies in order to come up with a complete set of processes that's been enabled by AI. What we've seen and what has been working for us in Deloitte is actually taking a look at where can we build some of those efficiencies across each of those businesses and determining, how do we change the work that we're doing, right? So a really good example in consulting, how could we take what we've been doing for years, which is creating functional and technical scripts or creating custom code and augmenting the way that we could do that so we could do it just a little bit faster with more information. In tax, I love this use case. I call it the shoebox use case, where in the US, you collect all your receipts and then you hand it to your tax provider and you say, please explain to me how I can, accumulate some of my deductions. So imagine instead of handing your tax provider a shoebox, you could actually hand them, all of your receipts, and generative AI could do that summarization and generate a report that, explains some of those deductions. So we're seeing things across all of our businesses, from a Dart bot in audit to what we've been doing with the incubator, really helping transform the way that we're working and how we're interacting with this technology.
What followed was an enriching discussion that decoded strategies to leverage Gen AI to foster customer experience.
And let me start with, maybe in this sequence, Kamal, with you. And if I can just ask you to introduce your role within the organization, and also what kind of use cases are you seeing evolve within your organizations?
For us, the prime, if you see the use cases are always built around processes. Simply because starting from end to end, whether it's your customer journey or your product journey, right? We touch upon a lot of processes. And with that, we always kept a clear focus that how do we generate more of a personalization around our products, which touches each and every point of the customer.
Are there cases that you guys are exploring in terms of how the AI or Gen AI is helping improve the customer interaction with the product, or help you build better features and experience for the customer?
How to be customer specific, right? Because while you have a lot of tech, a lot of excitement towards exploratory AI, but eventually all of this divergence will have to converge into some kind of user experience. So a couple of things that we've done from Siemens Advanta perspective is segregated it in terms of different users. If you look at our user experience, a lot of time which is spent in UX workshops, can that be automated to some extent?
Lenin, coming to you, now obviously one of the biggest things in therapies is the impact or diagnosis as well as the treatment life cycle and how the customers react to it. Are you seeing use cases on patients in this area as well?
What technology is doing, the use cases, I can't go too much in deep because we are working on it, is that being able to leverage AI to find those indicators where you can actually connect the dots and you can diagnose the patient. That's just one. The other is new indications. So a lot of the therapies can actually cure more than one thing. But you always, when people are going to a doctor and you're on a therapy, they essentially evaluate them for the symptoms they are treating. But there might be other underlying conditions that are getting treated as well, like secondary conditions. But there's no way to find that out. So that's another use case, again, we're working on. So it's those kind of things that technology is enabling, that you can actually take all these data sets and you can whether it's algorithms that you can use, but you're able to essentially explore areas that were not there. So same drug could be attacking multiple indications.
While it's great to hear other people talk about use cases or what can be done, but driving change within the organization, both from internal stakeholders as well as, for some of your customers at the periphery, is one of the most important, and especially when it comes to things like where people perceive it might impact my job, right? So how are you driving that change within Bajaj Auto?
My experience has been head, heart, and then the path. There is a logical appeal to this, to say that every quarter you get stuck with this question: what is the price increment you should take or not take, and what is the price elasticity in the 100cc segment, commuter segment, or the 150cc? And they're all very different segments. Data can answer these questions. So the head will give you a logical tenet to argue. Then there is the heart, which is to say that we operate with many business units. So the surest way of getting one business unit to adopt it is to say, listen, the other ones did, and they were praised hugely in the MD's review. And then there is the path. If you can't lay out the entire 9 yards of what it will take to achieve the intelligence, you won't get it. Which means the dirty stuff. You first have to get the retailer master right. You have to get the product master right. You have to make sure your master data talks the same language to all systems. Then we start to record. So then there is adherence. And then there is pattern recognition, and you can get intelligence on this process.
Deloitte's AI Forum 2024, presented by Deloitte AI Institute. The AI generation, a new age of possibility. Deloitte's AI Forum 2024, presented by Deloitte AI Institute. The AI generation, a new age of possibility.
Deloitte's Mike Bechtel navigated the history of Gen AI, illuminating the pathway to its future.
I'm going to go ahead and jump right to it and share with you a little bit of a look into what we call not just the sensing of what's coming, but the making sense of what's coming. Now, team, where's it going? Landing the plane. Soon, we're going to be hitting a moment where the Jeopardy bot and the chess bot and the HR bot and the driving bot all work together in a single multimodal library. And that library can only properly be thought of as smarter than everybody in this room and everybody who ever lived. But the punchline isn't fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Leaders don't receive the future. If you take one thing from my remarks, it's that leaders create the future, which is why I have every reason to believe that the smartest friend we know is going to be mostly harmless and be greatly lacking in initiative, because it's our job to engage and activate.
The forum hosted another remarkable panel fueled with discussions on the significance of data and analytics in GenAI implementation.
How do you sort of look at the value of generative AI and maybe AI more broadly? So maybe Premal, will get started with you because we feel automobiles can have some cool stuff and can maybe drive us from point A to point B.
We see quite some potential overall into this in different business areas. So we are trying multiple use cases. Earlier there was a discussion around how developer productivity can be improved. That's one. We are looking at the quality area in a big way. We are trying to combine generative AI along with knowledge graphs to really see how we are able to get into the quality aspects and the material linking of materials and that go into the making of a car with how the quality is coming, forth as value to the customer.
Nitya, what about you? What do you?
So I would rather think that the potential of business value that can get generated from AI or generative AI is not only about the right application of the technology for the right use cases, but it's also about how well the organization is ready to start making decisions based on a bot rather than based on their gut. Right, so it's a complex proposition, and there are multiple moving pieces.
So how do we sort of look at our enterprise data and how much it can inform what are outcomes out of AI and GenAI? So I know, Animesh, you are very passionate about this topic. So, some perspectives.
So I think it's very important before we dive head first into saying, oh, we'll put large language models or AI in general on data. It's very important to first understand what sort of data estate one has, and then think about what kind of data quality I already have, what sort of basic analytics I can do on top of it with accuracy, and then think about what value addition then I can bring on putting LLM. What are my use cases? One of the challenges which I often come across is what is the data set that we're going to train it on? And people say, oh, we can train it on this data, but what are the data sets driving what use cases? It's training. What sort of algorithms are running? All those questions are to be asked.
Thanks, Animesh. Vijay, where do you see this?
Similar thoughts, right? Like so Animesh said, we need to kind of make sure that we are clear about what we are trying to solve and not just focus on, using AI. And the way we do that is we have a deep focus on business value before we start any initiative. But once we start the initiative, we use that opportunity to be intentional about the architecture, about how we are organizing data, about how many other use cases we can think about, so that as we are creating value, we are also improving the foundation. Because if we just go down the path of improving the foundation and create no business value, then there's not going to be enough patience, right? So pick topics that have a lot of business value, but as you do that, strengthen the foundation, and eventually the future projects become easier.
The next panel assessed the impact and role of Gen AI through the lens of venture capitalists and private equity experts.
We keep hearing talk about a funding winter right now. But at the same time, we have seen a lot of action in the AI and adjacent space. Do you think it's a gold rush? Are we getting caught up in the hype? What's your perspective from a VC standpoint, and how do you differentiate the wheat from the chaff?
We in venture capital and private equity, we often refer to this thing called the power law, and I think that's very much the case in terms of investments flowing into AI startups as well. The rough numbers are that in 2023 there was about $50 billion invested into AI startups, mostly in the US. But out of that, 19 billion went into 3 specific companies, and 50% of the 50 billion went into 11 companies. So there's definitely a bell curve in terms of there's a top-heavy investment focus on the larger companies.
So Nishant, what's your perspective? Are we in the next 12 to 24 months going to still be in the phase where models and infrastructure gets funded, or are we also going to see more, or the flattening of this bell curve where we see more, much more broader a much more broader set of investments through the application layer or consumer applications, all of that?
If you think about the three levels of the stack, right? There's the model and the infrastructure at the bottom. Then you have these LLM ops. And then on top of that, you have the AI application layer. A big chunk, there's a huge skew towards the large language models. So your Anthropics, the ChatGPTs of the world, almost 70% of investments have gone there. So then you're down to 30%. So I think the large language models, as much as we may not like to hear it, this goes back to Sam Altman kind of throwing out a challenge here in India. I think that game is very hard to catch up, not just for India, but globally, right? Because the amount of money going into those, just to put it in perspective, the cost of a model training run is about $2 million for ChatGPT, and that's jumped to $42 million for ChatGPT-4. For GPT-3 versus GPT-4. Complexity is growing so fast, right? Now, how can, for each model run, if you're spending $50 million, you really need some deep pockets, right? So automatically, there's a few sort of language models that will actually work.
Up next, Deboshi Dutt, Principal Deloitte, shed light on Deloitte's approach to generative AI.
Today's discussion, we'll focus on generative AI, what exactly it is, and sort of how we as Deloitte have sort of started looking into it and playing with it. So when generative AI came out, it was a transformation. And just like every one of you, we started looking at it from two lenses. One, how do I use generative AI to transform my own delivery and services on the way we do work? How do we shift that work? And how does it sort of impact us in becoming more efficient and becoming more faster at doing the work? The second thing that sort of we were looking at was clients like yourself, how do we help you in your generative AI journey? And how do we then sort of with that learn new offerings that we bring to bear?
The forum concluded with an insightful discussion that decoded the ethical aspect of Gen AI and established the need for a trustworthy AI.
What is trustworthy AI? If you have to describe that in a few words, what's the definition? How do you see it?
Yeah, so from an enterprise context, I'm not a big fan of the word ethical AI or responsible AI, because that tends to get philosophical and abstract. So I like to focus on the word trust, because that means, is your product, is your AI solution, is your AI product, is it going to be trusted by your stakeholders, whether it's your internal stakeholders or whether it's your clients and customers, whether it's the government, the policymakers. Trust is definable, and trust is, when you can define it, you can solve it. So I like to think of it as, how do you make it trustworthy so your product and solution can be really, really successful?
How are you helping clients as Deloitte with trustworthy AI? Maybe that last one thing before we, call it a day.
I have two roles within Deloitte. One is helping clients, primarily boards and CEOs and their leadership teams, think about AI governance and the right kind of controls, or preparing from a workforce perspective. And that's where I see most interest from the financial sector and life science and healthcare. The other role that I play at Deloitte is really getting Deloitte trustworthy AI ready and making sure we have the right controls, we have the right plans in place. As one of the largest organizations, we obviously do a lot with AI, and it's I lead our efforts on trustworthy AI within Deloitte, which is a whole different challenge. But I get to experience what our clients are going to experience.
Super.
So it's really great.
Deloitte's AI Forum 2024, presented by Deloitte AI Institute. The AI generation, a new age of possibility.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.